have often walked down the street before, but the pavement always stayed beneath my feet before. All at once am I several stories high, knowing I'm on the street where you live. Are there lilac trees in the heart of town? Can you hear a lark in any other
Mel
part of town?
Tormé, who has been given the nickname the Velvet Fog, was a singer, arranger, composer, drummer, actor, and author. He came from Chicago, and he started out certainly as a jazz singer. And in the early 40s, he worked as a drummer and singer for the band that was led by Chico Marx of the Marx Brothers. In the 1950s, he definitely kind of went full on for jazz vocals and recorded quite a few albums. Apparently, he had more respect than some other singers that were around from the musicians because he was himself a musician, a composer, and arranger. So he understood the music better than some of the other singers that they encountered. In the 60s, it would seem he went into acting mostly. And the 70s, he went back into jazz because there was a resurgence of interest in vocal jazz. The stuff that I read didn't give lots of details about the rest of his career, but he slowed down, it would seem, and then died in 1999. Hi, my name's Dan. So this is my first encounter with Mel Tormé in any sense. I've heard his name, but I wouldn't have been able to say even that I knew he was a singer. I thought he might have been some kind of band leader, but I think I was wrong on that. That might have been somebody else. I don't know. Anyway, so now I've heard the album. So that was my first time hearing it, and I've listened to it twice. I've done some reading on Mel Tormé, and know a bit more about him. I also have tried to track down Shubert Alley, given the name of the album. I presume it's talking about a street in New York that's called Shubert Alley. What the connection is with the album, I have no idea. There's actually not a huge amount of information about this album around on the internet that I could find. Anyway, it's vocal jazz. It's kind of swing jazz stuff. Definitely kind of in the same vein as Frank Sinatra albums that I've listened to. His voice, so he had this nickname, the Velvet Fog, and I can get it. I can understand why people have said this. It sounds like he's got a kind of slight huskiness to his voice. It actually sounds like he just needs to clear his throat a little bit more, but that's just the natural sound of his voice. So it's got that little huskiness, but it's very smooth. I don't know how you can be husky and smooth at the same time, but he is. His singing's quite jazz-like. I mean, it's very, spot on the note, but he's also got bits where he's improvising as well, like as if he was an instrument. There's one bit where there's some scatting as well. So there's definitely kind of, a jazz feel to the whole thing. He has got kind of the male jazz singer cool feel to it. He's not quite as swaggering as Frank Sinatra. I'm feeling like I'm doing a lot of comparison with Frank Sinatra. I think that's because that's the most obvious reference that's popping up in my head. It's light entertainment. It's show classics. Apart from a couple of tracks, which are Lonely Town and Old Devil Moon, which are slower and more melancholy. It's very kind of light stuff. So a couple of the songs I knew. There's Too Darn Hot I've come across, and On the Street Where You Live, the Surrey with the Fringe on top is from Oklahoma. Probably my favorite songs on the album are a Sleeping Bee and Once in Love with Amy, and they're both kind of well written and well put together. I didn't recognize them from elsewhere. So the singing's pretty good. It's not deep emotional stuff. It's kind of generally kind of happy, swinging along kind of things. There's some nice arrangements, I think, in the band. Been arranged by a guy called Marty Page. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. Especially like the arrangement on the faster songs. It's a big band, sort of jazz big band. And there's some nice soloing as well, occasional points. So actually, for this sort of stuff, which is not generally my taste. And given that there were quite a few songs that I didn't know, I actually enjoyed it quite a reasonable amount, I thought. So I've now come across and listened to Mel Tormé. You might be a big fan, you might be experiencing for the first time. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts, please. Stick them in the comments below. I love to read them. And that's it from me for now.
Once in love with Amy, always in love with Amy, ever and ever fascinated by her, sets your heart on fire to stay. Once you're kissed by Amy, tear up your list, it's Amy. Ply her with bonbons.